Hi folks, it's day 26, I think, I hope. I want to talk about something today which is probably, it's going to make people uncomfortable, I guess, so I'm just going to warn you in advance that it may make you feel bad, or you may not want to listen to what I'm saying. So basically I'm going to be talking about suicide today. I'm not going to go into any kind of like graphic detail or the ins and outs of it all. But yeah, I can imagine it would be maybe triggering to some people. So I'm just giving you advance warning that you may not want to watch this video. So yeah, saying that, I'm over the last year and a half, I've done my best to try and spread the word about mental health and how it's a bigger problem than we realize, and it is still quite stigmatized, so people are still worried about telling people, and especially like work and your close friends. It's a difficult thing to kind of broach that subject to start off with. I mean, I found that once I started opening up, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, and it was definitely the right thing for me to do. I got the help that I needed and the support that I needed, and I wouldn't have got all of that if I hadn't opened up and spoken about my mental health problems. And it's sad that we are living in a society where it is still kind of a hard thing to talk about. I think as well what makes it harder is the fact that it's not knowing when to kind of talk about it. It's all well and good, everybody blogging and me vlogging and putting memes on Facebook and stuff saying, oh, we should be talking about mental health, but it's like, sometimes it's not kind of suitable to talk about mental health. It's one of the hardest things to do is to find that moment where you feel you can talk about it and it's not gonna go down badly, because there are certain circumstances where you probably shouldn't be talking about it, if you're kind of like at somebody's wedding or somebody's funeral even, I don't know, or a big social event, so I know from experience that it is difficult to kind of find that moment where you can kind of tell people, I'm not feeling, I feel really bad. I've got depression. I've got really bad anxiety. So it's tough. It's not just as easy as reading a meme on Facebook and then just coming out with it. It's, yeah, just from my own personal experience, I kind of had to pick my moments, I guess, when I told people, and now I'm quite open about it, as you know. Like, I've been talking about it for months. But yeah, that initial kind of when can I talk about it? When is a good time to talk about it? And I guess that's something that's personal to everybody. It's like you've got to figure that out, but never feel like you under pressure that you have to be open and honest about it all the time with everybody, because that may be detrimental more than it can help sometimes, because some people aren't ready to listen, some people aren't kind of going to accept it that well, and you may lose friends by being open about your mental health, which is unfortunate. But yeah, that's just, like I say, I've been doing what I can to kind of break down the barriers and make it okay to talk about mental health and to try and destigmatize it, because, as I say, people still view it as like, ooh, I don't know how to handle this, because in the end of the day, we're people, we're all just people, I'm no different because I suffer from depression and anxiety. I may, I have problems living my life, but ultimately, the person that people have known for all my life, I'm still that same person inside. I'm just a person. I'm just that person, but sometimes I struggle to kind of function. But it's still me. I'm still the same guy. Um, so yeah, mental health shouldn't be kind of like, it shouldn't change people's perceptions of you in any way, and that's what I'm trying to kind of get across. That we're all still the same people as we were. We just have problems, and that brings me on to suicide. So I mentioned that I was going to talk about suicide today. To me, suicide, mental health has still got a huge stigma attached to it. And to me, suicide's on a completely different level. It's almost like the ultimate taboo. Nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to kind of acknowledge it. And I can understand that. It's a horrible thing. It's not a pleasant subject. I get that. But it is the reality of the world that we're living in. Like 84 men are dying every week by taking their own lives. That's over 10 a day. It's scary, and that's just men under the age of 45. That's not including children who are being bullied online. That's not including women. That's not including men over 45. So, this is real. People are taking their own lives. And I feel that we're happy to kind of acknowledge suicide as long as it's not directly affecting us, because then it'll make us feel uncomfortable and we don't want to talk about it. And that's I think we need to talk about it. And again, it's not just a case of, meet your mates down the pub and say, oh, suicide, what do you reckon about that? There has to be, I don't know how we can do it. I really don't. But we need to kind of acknowledge it, first of all, that it is real and that it's a problem. And then try and fix it, because nobody's fixing it. It's all well and good, again, seeing memes pop up on Facebook and going, oh, that's terrible, 84 people a week, that's bad. And then just breezing past it to the next, status update from your friend. Or we need to do something more, I think. And I don't know what, because, I've struggled with suicidal thoughts for a long time, for, long 30 years maybe. I've really struggled, and I've been on the verge a couple of times, and I just want to make it clear that a lot of people think that suicide's a coward's way out. I think people still believe that it's, it shows that you're weak and that you're a coward, and you're not willing to face up to your problems and deal with them. And all I can say to those people is that's wrong. That's not the case at all. Suicide's never easy. It's never the easy way out. If anything, it's the hardest way out. From my own personal experience, I can't speak for everyone, but I know that when I was contemplating it, when I was putting a plan in place, it was tough. I didn't want to do it. Like, it was, I don't know how to describe the experience, but that level where you're feeling those depths of despair, where you just can't see a way out. You can't see things getting better. All you see is the world is dark around you. And, I know now, I've always, people know that suicide isn't the answer to anything. It's not the answer. It never will be the answer. But unfortunately, it's an answer, and in certain circumstances, people they'll take anything to get rid of that feeling, the pain and the suffering that they're going through. And, suicide, it's a horrible thing, but it unfortunately, it is an option, and it's an option that, becomes very kind of real in those moments where you're just not seeing a future, and you're not seeing how life can get any better. And from my own personal experience, when I did kind of contemplate it seriously and I put my plan in place, I thought I was doing the right thing. My mind kind of convinced me that this is the right thing to do, and not just for me. I was convinced that I was doing it for everyone around me, you know, because you think you're a burden. You do. I still think that. I feel like I'm a burden to everybody around me. Like, my wife's having to support me through this terrible illness, and she doesn't deserve that. She didn't sign up for that when we got married. This wasn't part of the deal, as far as I'm concerned. I'm putting her through that. So when it comes to suicide, sometimes you feel like you're doing it for everyone, not just yourself, but you want to make life better. Because at the moment you feel that you're making life worse for everyone. And on paper you are, like, you know, it's not nice to go through depression. It's not nice to put someone through that. Someone who loves you and someone who supports you. It's difficult for them. I can see that. I see that every day. And not just that, but your friends, work. My work's really suffered, but I'm getting so much support from my boss and my work colleagues. And part of me's thinking they don't deserve this. Like, I should be there. I should be doing my job. I should be being productive. I should be part of the world. And I'm not. I'm just a drain. And I know this is all true, not true. I know this is my mind kind of telling me things and convincing me that I'm not good enough and I am a burden to everyone around me. And logically, I know that that's lies. I know that. But when you're in the depths of depression, that sounds true. That really does. It's convincing. And, you know, for someone who's going through that, suicide is a very real option because it feels like a solution where there is no other solution. And I know it's tough to talk. I'm finding it really tough to talk about now, but it's something we need to kind of address. It really is, because this is real. This isn't just like something that's happening to other people. This is really happening to, like, you know, we need to kind of get a grip. I don't know, and like I said, I don't know how. I wish I knew how. And the problem I'm having is when you're in the depths of depression and it gets really, really bad, no matter how much you know that suicide isn't the answer, it'll always pop up and it'll always be there. It'll always be present in your mind. And I think once you've got as far as, if you've attempted it or you've put a plan in place like I did, that's always going to be there. That plan's there, you know. I mean, I did some serious research before I even kind of started putting a plan in place. So I know that my plan's there, it's ready to go, I can do it anytime. And that's the problem, it's there, it's always going to be present in my mind. Once you've thought of something, you can't unthink it. And it just means that when I am kind of going through bad depression, and you start to feel that you can't see a way out, and you can't see the way forward or the light in the darkness, that thought will come round again, and your mind will tell you, well, hey, what about this? You know, have you thought about that again? Maybe that's the way out. And I know it's not. I'm not trying to say it is, because it's not. I know that. I'm trying to say that that's how people's minds work when they're depressed. Nobody wants to kill themselves. I really believe that. I'm not just talking about my own experience, but I believe that. Like, nobody does. Like, human instinct, that's the last thing you want to do, is to kill yourself. That's just not the way we work. And that makes it kind of like, can you imagine like how strong that feeling must be to override that human instinct to survive? That's what depression is. It's that powerful that it can override that survival instinct and say, you know what, maybe you're better off dead. Maybe you should just let yourself go. And that's how scary it is. That's how real it is. And I know that after the first time I left hospital, where I was kind of, I made it back from that place where I thought that was the only way out. I still couldn't understand, you know, what other people were saying to me. Like, obviously my wife was saying, like, I couldn't live without you. You know, my life wouldn't be the same. I had all my friends telling me life wouldn't be the same if I wasn't here. And my argument was always, you know, people move on. People kind of, fair enough, people might grieve, but they would move on with their lives. Lives go on. That's what my thinking was when I was suicidal. But the truth of the matter is that's not the case at all. And I only found that out because after I left hospital, I wanted to kind of change my perspective. I wanted to get another perspective, because my perspective was I'd be better off dead, basically. Everyone around me would be better off if I wasn't here. And I wanted to kind of get the other side of the argument, because I couldn't grasp it in my mind. My mind was kind of focused on, you're better off not here. So I found out there's a group that exists called Survivors of Bereavement by Suicide, or SOBS. And they're basically a support group for people who've lost loved ones who've taken their own lives. And I had no idea a group like that existed. And it kind of, I wanted to find out more about them and how, you know, what was going on there. And I arranged to meet up with one of the group leaders of the Survivors of Bereavement by Suicide, just to try and get another perspective, you know, on suicide. And so me and Fran met this guy. He was a really nice guy. He told us his story. His son had committed suicide 10 years previously, and it had completely destroyed him. You know, 10 years on, and he still, like, he couldn't stand the pain that it caused. And, you know, it was a real eye-opener for me. Yeah, it was a hard meeting, actually, because, you know, he wanted to kind of, the overwhelming message I got from him was he just couldn't understand. You know, he wanted to understand why his son had done it, like what was the motivating factor behind it, what was going through his mind, why did he do it, why didn't he reach out for help. This man was desperate for those answers, and my heart was broken because I knew that he was never going to get those answers. And I mean, he was asking me lots of questions about my experience and why I felt like I had to do it. And it's just, yeah, he's not going to get that kind of resolution that he needs, because it doesn't exist for him. So it was a really hard conversation to have, and he told me as well about, you know, when people do commit suicide, it's not like, there's not a ripple effect that affects everyone around them. It's a cascade. It's like this just depression, and, you know, there's a higher chance that someone close to someone who commits suicide will commit suicide as well. It's just this devastating effect that it has on everyone around them. And that's where I struggle, because before I met this man, because I just couldn't see the effect. I couldn't understand why people would care, or why it would affect anyone that badly. But speaking to this man and learning about his experience and how so many people were negatively affected by his son's death, and still are after 10 years, it's kind of like it tore his family apart. It tore everyone around him apart. And that's the reality of suicide that I don't think people kind of get to see, you know. which is unfortunate because we need to see that. We need to understand the stakes, I guess. I mean, suicide is a big, big, big problem. And we need to do something about it as a society. And I think to start off with, we need to accept that it's real and that it's a problem, because we're not talking about it. We're not, you know, we're barely talking about mental health, let alone kind of going to that level of talking about suicide. People don't want to talk about suicide. People don't want to admit that it exists. But it does exist, and it's happening right now. 10 people are going to die today because of suicide. And it's something I feel very strongly about it, because I go through suicidal ideation a lot. When I'm in a deep depression, it's always there. It's always kind of like in the back of my mind. And I mean, luckily I've had the help and support that I've needed to get me away from that space. And meeting that man from the survivors of bereavement by suicide, that kind of changed my way of thinking. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about it, because I feel like we need to talk about it. We need to admit that it is a problem and it exists and it's real. Because if we don't, I don't know, it's kind of just going to carry on and probably get worse. And like I say, I don't know what the answer is. But I think the only way we're going to find the answer is if we are more open and honest and talk to each other about it. I don't know. And I'm not doing this because I want sympathy from people, or I want, attention. I'm not doing it for that. I think by now you know that I don't give a shit about myself. That's one of my big issues. That I don't care about me. I care about everyone else. So I'm not doing these videos. I'm not doing this video because I want people to say, "Oh, poor you. If how terrible that you're feeling that way." I don't care about me. I care about everyone else. I care about the 10 or 11 people that are going to kill themselves today. And I think we need to do something. But yeah, I'm going to leave it there. I apologise if I've upset anyone, or I've offended anyone, or I've made people feel uncomfortable. But we need to feel uncomfortable. It's an uncomfortable thing, because people are dying. And, one day it could be someone that you love. And that was another thing that David, the man I met, who told me, it's not just his search for answers that, he's never going to get the answers. It's also the guilt that you're left with. The guilt of feeling that you should have done more, or you should have been there, or there was something that you could have done to save that person. But the ugly truth is, there's nothing anyone can do around you. It's a decision that you make yourself. And you feel like you're doing it for the benefit of everyone else around you. So, yeah. I don't know. I'm going to leave it there. Like I say, I'm sorry if I've gone on for ages, but it's something obviously I feel really strongly about, because it's something I go through regularly, this suicidal ideation, and convincing myself that it is an answer, it is an option, and it should never be an option. We should never have to get to the stage where that is an option for us. And I don't know how to fix it. I wish I did. But I'm hoping that, talking to people and getting people talking about it, rather than just scrolling past it on a newsfeed, or, hearing an article on the news and going, "Oh, that's terrible," but, it just doesn't affect me, really. One day it may affect you, but yeah, I'm gonna leave it there, guys. Let's just keep talking about these things. Okay, I'll catch you guys tomorrow.